and welcome to the 5th annual GDC Animation Bootcamp. This is the clap part. All right. I'm Mike Jungbluth, lead animator at Volition and co-founder of the Animation Bootcamp, and I wanted to reflect on my approach towards creating an animation community. It's hard to believe that 5 years ago there wasn't much of a game animation community presence here at GDC, or hell, really anywhere. The only time animation got talked about was by non-animators, usually about chasing after ever more realistic facial animation, which would always lead to a bunch of animators getting salty online, because after marketing, that was marketing talk, not process. After this cycle happened enough times, I realized we can't get those people to stop saying what they're selling. We needed our own platform, a stage. And for developers, there are few stages larger than GDC. So, armed with my naive optimism and my own selfish desire to learn more, I reached out to animators that I knew and respected with far more experience and talent to see what GDC could offer us. We put together a pitch, myself and 7 others, and we got a day all to ourselves to define what game animation meant to us. After overwhelmingly positive feedback for the bootcamp and more animators wanting to present the next year, we knew the train was not only on the tracks, but barreling along. The next year we had 10 speakers, then 11, last year 23, and this year 22, which tells me we've probably hit peak speakers in a day. In the span of 5 years, we went from seeing only a couple of people define what animation means to the industry as a whole, to now dozens speaking on the topic. And not just from the purely aesthetic side either. It also encompasses tech and design and all of the things that go into making characters come alive. And with this platform, the community that has grown from it has really been the best part. I look out into the crowd here and I see so many familiar faces from years past. The bootcamp has become as much a family reunion as an educational experience. More important than the knowledge we walk away with, it's the bonds that make us stronger. But growing it beyond just this one day is necessary. Yes, we all have our various social media networks to stay connected, but how do we capture the enthusiasm and inspiration past one day a year? How do we get more people involved? Ideally, I want everyone that loves what we love to be involved in this. I recently read Thank You for Being Late by Thomas Friedman, which really cemented my mindset when it comes to information sharing. In a world where everything is accelerating at the speed of Moore's Law, fully embracing the speed of change is how you adapt and grow in our craft. The days of getting good at one thing and living off that thing for the rest of your life are passing us by. The rate of how quickly things change means we need to be continually learning and growing our craft. You can complain about the good old days when all animators had to do was just sit down and open up Maya or Max or whatever and animate, but that's akin to doggy paddling in whitewater rapids. We all need to learn how to ride a kayak. Hell, maybe even a skiff. And because all of this can be a scary thing for someone to do on their own, and businesses that thrive and make money off of the old approach of taking that knowledge and walling it off and owning it are often too afraid, slow, or unwilling to help, it's up to us, the community, to help each other out, to provide the tools and knowledge needed to keep us all from gulping down water when there are boats all around us that we can get into and ride this information wave together. And this here is where all of that starts. At GDC today, we have the bootcamp, which has 22 speakers across 10 blocks of talks with 5.5 hours of knowledge sharing overall. Every talk in here speaks to the different approaches and skills needed by different animators across the industry to bring a character to life. And during the main conference, there are even more animation talks, as you see here. Since the bootcamp is only one day, but the enthusiasm to share is so large, more and more talks are appearing at the main conference. I'll personally be practicing what I preach on Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m. about agents of mayhem in the West Hall. And while we're lucky to be here, this is only a fraction of the larger game animation community who couldn't be here. And democratization of knowledge is a key component of staying afloat the wave of accelerations. The first step to help them all out is to take pictures and notes of everything you see and share those with the hashtag GDCAnim. The second step is the animation exchange happening tomorrow in partnership with Twitch, in which we've programmed 8 more hours of all new talks with over 30 speakers to be streamed free and live to anyone with an internet connection. Tomorrow from 2 to 10 p.m. Pacific time, animation is taking over Twitch. Animation Exchange is the perfect example of adapting to the needs of the community, because getting 2 days at GDC hasn't been possible, and the outcry for more talks and more affordable options is one that has not gone unheard by all of us. And Twitch has been gracious enough to fully support our vision of open knowledge sharing. And then past that, we have animstate.com, which we've envisioned as a hub for all things game animation online. I know we sort of dropped the ball with this last year, so this year we've reached out to more of the community to help, because many hands lift all boats, if you'll forgive me mixing my metaphors here. And if you have a strong vision for what you want this community to be, or you want to get more involved, there's nothing stopping you. This all started with one person reaching out to 7 others. We decided to build a boat. join in arms and take a ride down the river. And now none of us will ever let go, Jack. So if you feel like you're treading water as it rises all around you, this is where you can find your life raft. This is where you can find your community. Come aboard. We're expecting you. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
So good. It's so awesome. I'm panicking, guys. Thanks. I mean, I know, but how does this work? The mouse isn't, it's a trackpad. Oh, God. I read off my phone again because that's how I always practice because I only have one monitor. So you'll forgive me here getting set up. All right. I'm going to be talking to you about how all students know nothing and all game devs are jerks. It's easy to spot a student. Like Neo finally seeing the code of the matrix, you see the pattern. The same questions over and over again. You get used to being accosted for feedback and in turn used to hearing why that feedback is wrong. And in time, you'll come to peace with simply tuning the stupid out. But students, don't be discouraged because you're undereducated. Everything's okay because all working developers are assholes anyway. Trust me. Furthermore, they're easy to spot too. Conversations are tediously one-sided. Everything you say is wrong in some way, and there is no tolerance for your inexperience. Devs spend more time checking Twitter than making eye contact, and you start to recognize they're already too salty about the industry to really be worth the time it takes to flag them down. You should be at ease knowing that you're younger, hungrier, and typically nicer than they are. Okay, we're off to a bit of a rough start here, but can you blame me? I can all but guarantee that everyone in this room has felt some semblance of these impressions at this point in their career. And if you haven't, well, this could be the week for you. I would like to know who, as a developer, please participate, has been fed up and maybe a little sad after having left a confrontation with a student. Yeah, come on. And students, past or present, who has wound up in a precious conversation with a working dev only to leave thinking, fuck that guy. Where have these sentiments even come from? I am in this unique headspace right now where I can vividly recall feeling the crushing disappointment of meeting a developer who didn't give me the time of day, and yet I still presently find myself capable of seeing students around and thinking, ugh, I just don't want to deal with this right now. Does anybody else remember the roundtables of 3 years ago, the students versus developers civil war? Well, to me, it's painfully memorable as a time I watched a community I longed to be a part of, verbally thrash and tacitly label a community I was still a part of as uneducated millennials, without questioning for a second whether or not they may have been a little out of touch. And I've seen many more students harassing developers in the middle of important, even private conversations with their peers, who've clearly slipped away for 5 seconds of alone time and felt myself cringe thinking how exhausting it must be to be here, and how tragic they no longer get to experience this in a carefree, self-indulgent way. Nobody wants to act like this. Students are obviously trying to learn, and as a dev, I know I do want to help. But if someone comes up to me asking, how do I animate? I get annoyed, and I've pretty much typecast myself as the permanent freshman around here. So what do? Well, as Mike just mentioned, this community is still relatively new, and that means change is possible, if not inevitable. If I can do something to help even a few people in this room today, I'd like to think it'll eventually snowball into a brighter tomorrow. So I want to help students, or anyone eagerly looking to level up their career, talk to other professionals in less confrontational ways. And I want to help devs speak to students without being exhausted or inadvertently making ourselves out to be jerks. So, students, get over it. There's no shortcut for hard work. That means stop asking for them. Don't ask about the pencils someone's using with an inclination. It's the tools they use that got them where they are. I spent my entire education studying Maya, and I haven't opened that program for more than 1 minute in 3 years. Meanwhile, as a professional, there's a certain part of your career you take for granted simply because you're naturally inclined to work hard at it. Please do your best to have patience. Aren't you here to learn too? How much did you learn only after you got your first job? Plus, if you don't want there to be so many students bugging you, then maybe there should be more entry-level jobs. I know that's not necessarily up to anyone here, but I'd bet a lot of this grief would go away with opening an appropriate outlet. Students could be like, hey, okay, I get it. I'm new, I don't know a lot, but I'm not desperate, all right? At least I'm working. We can sculpt these noobs into the kind of colleagues we want to work with. Students, I know it's scarce out there, but desperation's not attractive on anybody. Learn to read the room. There is a time and a place for serious reviewing. Leave the tablet in the hotel room for the night. Definitely leave the 30-pound pro gaming laptop in the room for the night. Yeah, we see you standing at the end of the bar waiting for someone to come get a drink alone so you can pounce on them for feedback and please maybe a job. There are other important parts to working as a professional that don't involve your reel, and typically places like GDC are better for making those kinds of connections. And devs, try to remember where you came from. I'm not saying you need to become best friends with someone 15 years younger than you, but think about what even 5 minutes of conversation could mean to them, where no matter what is on your resume, the mere fact you have a job makes you an idol to them. Don't be the kind they regret meeting. Obviously, this is all rather over the top, extreme language into response to this community's collection of horror stories. But it's first thing Monday morning, and what a better way to get the blood pumping than trying your hand at insulting a room of your betters. But from this, it is my utmost desire that this week you take a look at the folks around you, not just your buddies from years back, and maybe make some connections you might not have otherwise made. I'm talking meaningful interactions. Don't just network. Don't fucking network. Talk to people. Be interested in them. Get to know them. Talk to me. I'm in the first talk of the week, and I have nothing better to do after this. There were a lot of closed doors in 2016. Let's start this year by opening a few in return. My name is Lana Bachynski. I'm an animator at Blizzard Entertainment for Heroes of the Storm. Thank you very much.
Oh, right. This is, I guess, the first slide. All right. All right, so I'm Matt Conn. I'm the CEO of Midboss, and we do a couple different projects. Recently, our game Read Only Memories just went on PS4 and PC. We also run the gaming convention, the LGBT gaming convention, GamerX. So, today I'm going to talk a little bit about just political messaging and kind of, how you go about pushing your message, and if it's better to do it in an overt way or if it's better to be subliminal, and what the costs are associated with each. Basically weighing the best way to get your message out while also weighing the market. To do so, we're going to be looking at the implementation of marginalized voices and underrepresented themes in interactive media and how strongly they're emphasized or prioritized. Other mediums are doing this well. This is not new. If you look at TV shows or comics, a lot of other mediums are actually doing subversive work really well. For instance, with Empire, on Fox, you have a gay POC who's an on-camera lead in Jamal, and despite being a show about hip-hop and big celebrities, it also works in intersectionality and deals with issues like mental health and complex queer issues. With Steven Universe, this is another show that I think is doing subversive political really well. At the surface, it may seem like a show about a young boy fighting evil, but actually deals with lesbian space rocks and non-traditional, living relationship. And that definitely is something that was not worn on the surface. Even stuff like Young Avengers, it's a comic book. They fight evil. They fight crime. But also deals with, there's numerous queer characters, and it showcases their lives in a way that is not othering. It's very kind of like, yeah, they're just another part of the team. But, when you do games, and you have to be careful about how you put your political messaging. If you're too overt, you're only going to hit a certain audience. And when you only hit that certain audience, you're limiting yourself to a very specific niche of people. With games like Mario's Missing, you could say that their messaging was overt, but probably only hit a certain specific audience. Even with games like My Ex-Boyfriend, the Space Tyrant, this is a good example of a game that's very overt with its political messaging, in that it's clearly what the creator wanted to create, but people who might not be outside of the intended audience probably would not play that game. So a good subversive game, theoretically, is a game like Mafia 3, because even though it's a pretty cut and dry crime game, it introduces themes like racism through the gaming play style. So like when you commit crimes in white neighborhoods, the police come faster, things like that. Games like Overwatch, which is a first-person competitive shooting game, also showcases a globalist team of do-gooders. Their unity and friendship across social and economic bounds is kind of a political statement in itself. And also Tracer just came out, which is pretty cool. Even games like Mortal Kombat 10, even though it's a hyper-violent game, you have female characters that are top-tier fighters, and they even have a gay character that's referenced in the story, and he's still a badass and killer like all the other ones, but he's just cool and badass, but also he's gay and proud of it. So real quick, I want to show you so I talked about some subversive games, but I also want to talk about post-struggle games. So these are games that kind of jump over the political ramifications of a lot of their choices, and usually they're made by younger designers. So like in games like Stardew Valley, you can just kind of marry anyone you want. Or in Undertale, there are sexual characters, there's asexual characters and gay characters and poly characters, a wide range of people. And so while this is great, there's definitely some issues in that it doesn't directly address any of the problems. It just kind of moves past them and jumps over those issues that we live in. However, these can also be great because it shows young people a better world, a world where there's potential realities. So if you look at a game like Burrito Galaxy 65, they have a non-binary lead, and they're just treated as another person in the game, and that's something that's really cool for young people to be able to look at and be like, oh, cool, I can see that world. So I think there's benefits and negatives to doing post-struggle things. So we do a couple different things. We run GamerX, which is the LGBT-focused gaming convention, and we've learned there's a lot of different ways that you can actually bring people in. We do stuff like gender-neutral bathrooms and having pronoun stickers and stuff like that. It's really low cost, and it actually allows you to get a lot of benefit because it brings a lot of people in who might not be interested. With our game Read Only Memories, we use a lot of the same tactics where we have things like gender pronouns and things like that at the beginning of the game that don't really affect the gameplay of most players, but for the people that actually use those things, they feel that much more engaged and want and feel like they're a part of that world and that they belong there. Generally, I say if you're making games, try to put in a political message. Because, if you want to, because people generally like things with a message. For the most part, there's a very loud minority that say we don't want politics in games, but games are art, and like any art, politics are a part of it. Subversive can be very appealing because, when we make games, and for a lot of people, if you want to make things, as I was saying earlier, if your political messaging is too overt, potentially it might not reach that same audience. So when you make things that are subversive, you can kind of reach a wide audience and kind of slip your message in. However, subversive can be negative because sometimes when you're too subversive, you're actually perpetuating a lot of the same issues and stereotypes that you're saying that you're trying to fight against. And a lot of times if you're trying to make your characters too mainstream, you're actually kind of taking away what makes them special and telling them they just need to be like everyone else. But ultimately, only you know you. You got to decide what you want to make and what matters to you. And you need to decide, if you want to try to make a game that makes money or if you really want to make a political message, and only you know what you're willing to drop off a little bit and add a little bit more. But yeah, I think just have confidence in yourself. But in general, make what feels right, figure out your goals, what you want to say and achieve, but also allow for agility. And I think you'll have a good time. You can reach me at MattConn, MattConn, and I really appreciate letting me be a part of this.
Okay. Bringing fans into the development fray. My name is Mariel. So, I work at Lab Zero Games as the lead animator and art director. And at our studio, we've had the experience of crowdfunding a game and a half. We funded DLC for Skullgirls, and we've got funding for our next game after Skullgirls called Indivisible, which we're working on now. So you might know that part of the deal in crowdfunding is that your backers expect a certain level of transparency. In exchange for making your game happen, many of them want a look behind the curtain to see how it's all done. And teams take a lot of different approaches to transparency. Some provide write-ups and emails, some provide gameplay videos, some stream their development, and some provide nothing and they run far, far away with your money. For us, though, we like to stream development whenever someone has a couple uninterrupted hours to spare. So we'll stream ourselves working on whatever it is we're doing to Twitch for anyone to come out and hang out and chat. For me, as animator, that means I get to stream myself animating. I don't get to do it as much as I'd like, but I actually really enjoy streaming because it helps me focus when I know people are watching. No more 1 minute that turn into maybe 10-minute Twitter breaks. It also helps people learn exactly what goes into making our games with no actual effort on my part. I'm just letting them watch my screen while I do it. I think it takes a lot of the mystery out of it so that people better understand our process. Like for our games in particular, which are 2D hand-animated games, people would think they're like Newgrounds Flash animations or that the computer magically makes in-betweens for us. So when I stream, they actually get to see me painstakingly draw every stupid frame. And also what's nice about having another dozen or
100 pair of eyes is that sometimes the chat will spot things that you don't, which is kind of hard to admit because, of course, you think you know everything, but also I found that there were times that I didn't. I was animating a taunt for one of our characters in Skullgirls named Valentine, where she sucked on a lollipop. But then the viewers chimed in and said, Valentine, her official bio actually says that she hates candy, so she wouldn't have a lollipop. And I had actually completely forgotten, and so I had to change it to a chocolate bar. I was animating a wrestling move for one of our characters, Beowulf. I had keyed out poses that were physically possible, but as I started to actually animate them, I ended up animating his arms in a motion that wasn't physically possible, and I didn't even realize it until the chat kept yelling at me. And we have this character, Sarabella, who has giant sentient arms on her head that, when they're not the focus of the animation, I kind of fudge what they're doing. In one animation, I had accidentally started to animate the arms clipping through a hoop she was sitting on, and the chat helped me figure out a solution. And just generally, opening up your work to let them chime in, you can actually learn things that you didn't know about. I learned about wrestling moves for Beowulf, or someone can chime in and comment on the music I'm playing, and I can learn about something else. But it's not all fun and games and getting work done. It's easy to fall into the trap of not getting anything done because you got sucked into the chat. You definitely need to resist the temptation of jumping in to talk to everyone, even though it's nice to be engaged. You also need to be aware of what you can and can't stream, or what's even interesting enough to stream. Sometimes my work is just organizing files or writing emails, and that's no fun. And you don't want to stream big spoilers either, because you want your players to have something new to look forward to. These are just a few of my experiences, but the overall impact it's had has been really beneficial to our games and the communities around them. We get new people all the time who just saw a retweet of a stream happening and get introduced to our work. Because of that, and our willingness to engage and open up to anyone willing to listen and watch, I think we've built a really solid community around both our games and our team, with new people coming in all the time. And it's rewarding for me, too, to see people engaging with our work, even when it's boring stuff like me trying to figure out how to draw a hand. And it's a nice excuse to tell my coworkers not to bother me, because I can shout back that I'm streaming, so they need to leave me alone. And hopefully, by being transparent about our process, we can also encourage newcomers to start creating their own games, since now they've seen a huge part of what goes into game development by watching us stream. And I think that when we get more people becoming interested in creating new and different types of games, we all benefit. Whether you're a developer or a fan, more games and more communities around them means more stuff for all of us to play. My name is Mariel Cartwright. That was my Microtalk. Thank you.
Okay, let's do this thing. Hi everybody, I'm Matthew Russell. I've made games for Valve and Epic, and now Amazon Game Studios. I'm here today to talk to you about engaging with your community, especially when your community thinks something that you've done to your game, like an update, DLC, or a patch, really, really sucks. To do this, we need to take a step back and see what community was like way back in olden days, before DLC, before weekly updates, before games as a service, before user-generated content, hell, before games were even video games to have a community around. Back then, a person or a group of people made a thing like a movie or a TV show. That thing went out into the world to be consumed. People bought it, and they consumed it. The closest to a back and forth dialogue were reviews by people who had their own TV shows to basically tell you if something sucked. Then in the late 70s and early 80s, we finally saw the rise of video games, first on consoles and then on home PCs. But like other entertainment content, everything was primarily a one-way street. A studio made a game, shipped it off to GameStop, and then they got started on the next one. But with the introduction of PCs like the Commodore 64 and Apple II, and don't forget BASIC, all of a sudden, people like you and me, okay, people like me because I'm old, we had the opportunity to start creating our own totally radical video games. And on top of that, PCs saw the introduction of something called the internet. This let people from around the world who had common interests, like video games, connect with others. Not only could people talk about games together, but then they could also start making games together. And this ushered in a whole new world of collaboration. But like I mentioned before, video games were pretty much status quo when it came to how they were created and shared with the world. Really just one way. Bulletin boards and then eventually forums gave players the ability to create and share their thoughts, scores, secrets, and exploits. It wasn't until the concept of games as a service, though, with both subscription-based and free-to-play games, that we saw the relationship between player and developer become really dynamic and kind of dramatic. Can you say SWAT? So, today's player-developer relationship really isn't anything new, though. To see where its roots came from, we have to take a look back at the concept of art patronage. How this worked was a really wealthy benefactor would pay an up-and-coming artist, or like a great master, to do nothing but create art. How fucking cool is that? Am I saying you're the next Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo? Probably not. But you could be the face of whatever project you're working on, especially if you are part of a small indie team where everybody wears a lot of hats, or if you're at a big studio that really pushes for transparent development with their community. Well, you found yourself in a position to engage in this dynamic new relationship. What now? Well, first, you need to know your potential audience. You got two. Group one, trolls, leave them under the bridge, they just crave attention. Group two, pretty much everybody else. Well, almost everybody else. A thing to consider about everybody else is some of those folks, they want to tell you what's wrong with your game, and that's fine. But then they want to tell you how to fix it. And unless you read their comments and you're like, holy crap, you've got to work here now, you can kind of leave their feedback as don't respond to. Now what? Well, remember, you can always say nothing. Seriously, this is always your first best option. Anything you say is the verbal equivalent of gas on a fire. I mean, how many times have you seen a developer reply to an email or a forum post only to see it become part of an article on a website? If you feel like you absolutely have to respond to someone, first, find out if you really are the right person to do it. Unless you're specifically given the go-ahead, you should never speak on another department's behalf, like design, art, animation, marketing. Marketing people will kick your ass if you try to respond on their behalf. So it turns out that you are the right person. Well, here we go. Remember what I said before, though, and I can't stress this enough. You can still say nothing. It's better to keep your mouth shut and have them think you're an idiot than to open your mouth and kind of prove you are an idiot. So, despite my previous suggestions, you're committed to responding. First thing to do, leave your ego at the door. It isn't about you. Your update or patch screwed up a game that they spend 30 or more hours a week playing. If you take it personally, you've missed the whole point of why they emailed, and you've kind of already lost. Respond with humility and transparency. If you treat them the same way you would like to be treated, more often than not, one of two things is going to happen. Either first, they won't respond at all. This happens more often than you think. Or two, they'll do a complete 180 and be like, holy shit, I didn't know real people responded to this. During your exchange, try to find out what actually made them mad, like you nerfed their favorite character. Outside of trolls, most people are writing because they genuinely love your game, which is now kind of really their game too. If you can find that thing, you'll have common ground. This is an opportunity to have a genuine interaction with them. You can take someone who once called you a complete dumbass and was probably Googling how to SWAT game dev and turn them into a legitimate, outspoken proponent of your studio and your game. But you're not going to make everyone happy. It just doesn't work that way. And as long as you're humble and transparent and know when to keep your mouth shut, that's fine. You'll know you're good, and you'll be fine when all of that stuff shows up on Kotaku. And it will. Thank you very much. Have a great GDC.
Hi, my name is Gabriela Aveiro, and I am a freelance animator and co-director at Dames Making Games, a non-for-profit based in Toronto that supports women making and playing games. And I'm here to talk about how important engaging with local communities is. So reaching out to a local games community can prove helpful when you're facing times of uncertainty, whether it's learning more about how the industry works, wanting to refine skills, or simply needing support during stressful times. Communities can be pillars that hold us up. Being a member of a local community helps keep that community active, and an active community can continue giving back resources to those who need it. Like myself, when I first decided to get involved locally in Toronto about 2 years ago when I was still in college. As a student, I stayed inside my college bubble for a fairly long time, but once I stepped out of that comfort zone, I found a lot more resources that I used to improve my art and animation skills. I wanted to focus on my studies as much as I could to develop my skills and graduate with a strong portfolio. In my second year of college, I had gotten exempt from a couple of classes, so I decided to set aside that time to get to know my community better and prepare for post-graduation life. I signed up to volunteer at events throughout the city while also honing my creative skills. I immediately felt very motivated by the people I met, artists and designers who had been in games for long, as well as those who were in a similar position as me, new to the career, new to the community, not quite sure how or where we fit in. This was quite the change from my original plan. Go to college, keep my head down, work hard, graduate, get a job. I can be very shy at times. I'm definitely not the loudest voice in the room, and this is my first time meeting most of you, so avoiding community stuff seemed ideal if it meant more time to animate. But I found out that wasn't challenging or fulfilling enough, and even though I am an introvert at heart, I was curious to know what I could do to get involved with something while I was still a student. Getting out there and lending a hand at these events showed me their importance and how it builds community. During this process of volunteering and trying community stuff out, I was also looking to find a particular space and community I could be a part of, then sticking to one that felt right, which is how I ended up joining Dames Making Games. Even though at times balancing community involvement in college proved difficult, it was worth it. College helped me develop skills. Getting involved with my community helped me sharpen skills I would need to give back to my community, like not being scared of speaking from strangers. And as a Latina immigrant, my community empowers me and supports my voice, as well as others who belong to marginalized groups, giving importance to our stories and experiences. Amplifying these voices will always bring positive changes. And both from my personal experiences and in experiences within the community, supporting marginalized groups makes a community stronger and creates a healthy and inviting space. After all, we are stronger together. To reference an example, Dames Making Games focuses on women, trans, non-binary folk working in and playing games, offering events, workshops, and mentorships. Most recently, our 15th member game jam, Feb Fatal 5. It's a priority to have a space that is both safe and welcoming. Collaborating with other organizations is also key. Running workshops aimed at marginalized groups is great, but it's important to work together so all communities move forward and the content is both respectful and benefits those who it is aimed at. Dames Making Games has been organizing Indigicate for 2 years, a program run in partnership with local Toronto group Indigenous Roots, to offer a long-form program to Indigenous women interested in making games, providing them with a space, equipment, and mentorship to do so. If members thrive, the community also thrives. Living the purpose of community in the hands of members gives a chance for everyone to shape a community according to its interests and values. This also ensures members get the support that they need. I realized that I can be dedicated to both my art and my community. While I was reluctant at first to get involved with anything relating to community, I very quickly felt its impact in how I communicated with others and how I prioritized my time in general. In conclusion, reaching out locally is important because it's a chance to get involved in ways that can impact you creatively and an opportunity to find support among artists and developers in your area. My personal takeaway is that as a younger artist, it has inspired my creativity and my passion for being involved with communities that support marginalized groups, communities that give us opportunities to grow, inspiring us to keep going. And had I dedicated myself only to work and nothing else, I would have never had a chance to have some of these experiences that influenced me creatively. Having those very unique connections will never hinder work. It will only strengthen it even more. Thank you.
Is this working? There it is. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Holy shit, there's a lot of you. My name is Gwen, and I'm a technical animator. I've been in the industry for about a decade now. Most recently, I co-founded a small studio in Boston, and we launched The Flame in the Flood 1 year ago today. Yeah. We're up for 2 awards at the IGF. Yeah. But I'm not here today to talk about that. The topic today is community, which is fantastic. I'm really glad we get to talk about this. Communities are wonderful. There's absolutely no negatives being a part of a community, and I want to go over several of the benefits that there are to being in a community. The first thing I want to talk about is how beneficial engaging the community is for your skill as an animator. I remember when I started out as a student, I thought the time I would spend animating would make me a better animator. But it turns out the time you spend on social media makes you a better animator. And so I think I'd like to talk about how to do that. I think the first thing everyone here should do is to go on Reddit and find all the subreddits that have to do with gaming and animation and follow them. Then I think you should find like several hundred people to follow on Twitter. There's Pinterest boards, websites, Tumblr blogs. There's people Twitch streaming themselves, and there's YouTube videos with tips and tricks and shorts. And you need to look at all these resources because the reality is resources are what's going to make you a better animator. And every now and then, you're going to find some resources that are truly fantastic. Like, no bullshit, Christian's YouTube videos are actually really good. Like, they're fantastic. And they might inspire you. Like, if you watch his videos, you might be inspired to make better animations, or something better might happen. You might be inspired to make your own YouTube videos. And this is great. Because if you're doing this, then you're engaging the community directly. I mean, you're engaging the community as a YouTuber, rather than as an animator, but that's what you want. Because in reality, it's the likes you get on your videos and the number of views and the content you make that's not animation that really determines your skill as an animator. You'll know you're making it when you're making Twitter polls and podcasts. And I can hear you, I know what you're thinking. You're like, but Gwen, I want to animate. I want to be an animator. Shouldn't I be animating? No. That's the wrong idea. It's talking about animation, it's thinking about animation, it's reading about it. That's what makes you a better animator, and the community will help you get there. There's other benefits to being in a community as well. For instance, the collaborative problem solving we do as a community is really beneficial. When you're looking through all these YouTube videos, you're gonna realize that we've already got a lot of these things figured out. Like, if I want to animate a character landing, I know exactly how a character should land. It's been drilled into my head. I've seen it over and over. And I think that's fantastic. Because we troubleshoot these problems together, we save so much time and energy as developers. And honestly, I think the best case scenario is when we all come together as an industry and we turn game development into a collaborative experience. You have to understand, I'm an indie, and even when I was in AAA, like, the hardest part about making a game is pre-production. Figuring out exactly what it is you should be making. You have all these goals, and like, you want to eat, and you just can't figure out what to do, and it's very stressful. But fortunately, last year we came together as an industry and we realized we just need to make a character-based shooter with MOBA elements. And it's really comforting when your livelihood comes from your art to know that we have all come to this conclusion, because that means it's probably right. Oh God, I forgot. The best part about being in a community is, of course, the feedback you get. And I don't just mean like the animation community, though the animation community and the game development community will give you great feedback, but the gaming community, man, they go above and beyond. Like, they're great at reaching out and letting you know what they think. They'll find you. They'll write you emails, they'll write you reviews, they'll find you on Twitter, they'll find you on LinkedIn. That's weird. Oh, here's a fun thing. They can, so when somebody on Steam decides they want to return your game and they want a refund, they can write you a little note to let you know why. Like, here's some of the things people have written us. The letter T. Character so ugly I shat my pants. Wow, we had an impact there. Some people get a little stressed out by this, I know, because it seems like when people give you these reviews, what they say they want, and actual metrics and purchasing data don't align at all, but that's the community doing you a favor, really. And I think the best case study for this is Warframe. Warframe is a game that, one of the highest grossing games on Steam last year. It did super well. And the reviews are quite negative. But the gamers put so much time and energy into reviewing that game. They really did the research, and I think that's why Warframe is such a good game, really. And I think the devs appreciate that. And so in conclusion, I hope you've learned 3 things from this talk. I hope you know that you should research as much as possible. Use social media for this. I think you should know that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The community has made the perfect wheel. Use the wheel. And I think you should immerse yourself in the feedback directly from your gamers. I hope you're a part of all these communities, and I hope you go ahead and follow me. If you'd like to be part of my community, I'm Dire Goldfish on Twitter. I have a podcast called The Dialogue Box on iTunes, and obviously I have a YouTube account with tips and tricks videos. Check them out. Have a wonderful conference.
It's making sounds. Okay, there we go. My talk's, I guess, how I figured out how to be part of a community. It took me a long time. So here we go. All right. I'm Matt Majers, a loner, a rebel. I attended CalArts to become an animator nearly 20 years ago. It worked, and now I am. I've worked at a few places, Rhythm and Hues and Weta, and now for the last 14 years I've worked at Pixar. I love working at Pixar now, but there was a time I didn't, and I couldn't figure out why. I spent my first 10 to 15 years, both in and out of school, so obsessively focused on being a great Pixar animator that I neglected nearly everything else. I was finally part of a community that I'd wanted to be part of so badly, but I wasn't feeling a part of it. By the end of my 10th professional year, I was burnt out, tired of animation, tired of the wonderful community I was so fortunate to be part of, tired of not understanding what my voice was in the art I was making. If I'm gonna make something, oh geez.
It's not going.
Where are we going here? Slide, burnt out. There we go. All right, sorry, yeah. You wouldn't realize that I work on computers all day, every day. All right, so anyway, if I'm gonna make something, it damn well better be good. Otherwise, it's not worth the effort. I love to improve, and I love to see the before and after difference. The question was, how do I improve if I feel like I'm done? So I started asking, what next? Am I gonna be a park ranger? I knew I'd invested more time and effort into this than anything else in my life, even skateboarding, and I spent way too much time doing that. So there must be something I love about animation, I just needed to find it. I needed to make something different of my own. I love games, so I decided to try developing one. I imagine you're all deeply aware of this. Developing games is really damn hard. But it was great. I was talking to a lot of new people who had different talents. I was using my animation sensibilities and design skills to answer questions I hadn't asked, let alone answered before. I iterated the ever-loving hell out of that game, a full 23 versions of 3 completely different mechanics over the course of 5 months. As it started to wrap up, I didn't really feel I had anything viable, but I'd learned a lot and established ties to a new community and was realizing that maybe animation was in my future. Meanwhile, at Pixar, I got lucky and landed a spot on the Inside Out team. I decided to take 4 months and focus on nothing more than animating and getting to know people with, more people with the intensity I'd used to pursue my game. That way I could really answer the question, do I want to be an animator? I focused on making every bit of animation the absolute best I could. I struggled to find the same truth in my work as I had in my game. I ate lunch with different people every day because I'd enjoyed meeting new people while working on my game. I communicated as clearly and concisely as I could about every aspect of my job. My takeaway from those 4 months, animation is fucking amazing. Finding the truth in your work is the best way to enjoy it. Interacting with a variety of people is great. Critical thinking and problem solving are everything. But I still felt I didn't necessarily understand my voice. I love to cook. I do it every day and on weekends. I go nuts. It's physical, it's mine. The sear on a piece of meat, my call. Ingredients I use, my choice. However, cooking for yourself isn't really that much fun. I'm feeding people. Their reaction matters. It's communication. I love riding skateboards too. Ramp or street skating today, up to me. Throw myself off this massive flight of stairs if I really want to. However, I like to skate with friends. I like to be part of a community. For some reason, I'd never asked myself this, but one day I realized, how do I know when and what to do in these other pursuits that I love? It's what I like. That's how I know. How do you think it should be done? That's the most important question. That's what sets your work apart from everyone else's. Before becoming burnt out, I worked in a vacuum of my own making. I was so focused on trying to be great, I was ignoring everything else, including myself. You can't become great by trying to be great. You can, however, find the truth in your work, that thing that gets you excited, and use that to make your work the best it can be. Whether you're thought of as great or not is not up to you. The only thing you've got is yourself. Your mind, your thoughts, your actions, and it's a weird message for a talk on community, I know, but it's true. If you're approaching your job, your friends, your communities from a point of view other than your own, you're not giving much and you're getting even less. So it's your decision. However, when you're working on someone else's project, that work is only yours to a point. How the hell do you deal with that? Well, your first pass is everything. This is your moment to make your work what you think it's supposed to be. Do that. Make damn sure it's clear. It communicates your ideas about both physics and feelings and fits well with the work around it. By doing this, when you get direction, you'll know where you've been, and it makes it that much easier to talk about where the work needs to go. You have a point of reference. If not, you'll be chasing someone else's ideas through a void. So, get the hell out of your rut. Learn something new. Maybe it's about animation, maybe it's about architecture. Just do and learn other things. You'll gain new knowledge, and you'll gain the ability to observe what you do through a new lens. This will help you understand what you want out of your work more. Once you understand what you like and where you're coming from, interacting with your community will be a hell of a lot easier because you'll have your point of view as a starting place. You'll be a point of reference instead of part of a mob. So, I love cooking, skateboarding, developing games, animating, and I love the community of Pixar. All those things I thought I was doing by myself, as a loner, a rebel, I was doing them with and for people. I finally understand what I need out of it and what I need to give, and I finally understand how to be part of a community. So, anyway, thanks everybody.
Hi, I'm Tim Borrelli, animation director, wow, that's a good start, at First Strike Games, and Lana asked me to share a personal story about GDC last year, and so I hope I don't fuck this up. Every year, like many of you here, I look forward to GDC, and specifically this boot camp. Last year was no different, except for one minor difference. And if I could write a letter to myself about any one thing that day, it would be this: you suck, and that's okay. Hey, past Tim. Right now, you're probably on the phone talking to your boss. You'd been enduring a repeated text from work all morning. The boot camp is more important than work, you thought to yourself. But what you didn't realize, though, was that those texts were mostly from your team. They were telling you that they had just been laid off and want to know what the hell just happened. So there you are, listening to the voice on the other line, about to find yourself in the same boat as them. Laid off over the phone with no warning and no severance. Soon you'll get a ton of texts asking what happened, and realize that you should probably call your wife before she finds out through Facebook. Her only reaction will be to say, I just got my knife sharpened. Can I go to your office and pick up your stuff? It'll be a good reminder of why you married her. After getting off the phone, you'll keep it to yourself and bury yourself in the talks of the day. You'll even keep live tweeting for the folks who are not there. That's what this community means to you. It's stronger than any layoff. That said, the layoff will still affect you, but you won't see it coming. You'll freak out a lot, crying in your room more than once, as it's the first layoff you've ever experienced. You'll even run the animation roundtables and think, you did a pretty good job. When you get the reviews in a few weeks, Tim, this will be your first sign. You'll also learn that getting laid off during GDC isn't the worst thing that could happen. The people around you will put you in touch with recruiters and friends of friends looking to help. You'll make new connections and rekindle some old ones, and try your best to help others do the same. Once home, you'll start sending out your reel to the places you spoke with during GDC. You'll be fine, you say. You're not a dick, and your reel is pretty good, right? But it's been 2 days, and all you'll think is, why aren't they knocking down my door yet? At this point, you will not yet realize that you suck, but that's okay. Soon you'll start getting extra work requests. You'll be asked to take a test and say, sure, I'll do a 2-minute cinematic sequence with 2 characters acting and interacting, and it's due in 2 weeks. Fucking A, I need a job. You'll also be asked about tech art roles, something you hadn't done in years. And Tim, as much as you like posting Instagram videos of yourself all the fucking time, talking about your pythons is the last thing you'll want to do. You'll have lunches with studio heads to see what you're looking for, and that'll make you realize that you have absolutely no clue. The people you are with right now will reach out to help often. One will give you an amazing critique of your reel, and you'll tell him next GDC that you felt like you'd let him down. Like you'd let a lot of people down because your reel wasn't as good as he and others had hoped it would be. But don't worry though, eventually that will light a fire in you, but not before you finally realize that you suck. You suck at wanting to look for a new job, at even trying to find a new job. You'll find yourself caring more about helping old coworkers land on their feet than you on your own. And soon, Tim, you'll get depressed and you'll start drinking a lot. Too much to the point where you'll get sick and you'll need to stop for a while. You'll step away and start concentrating on yourself and your family. You'll do other things like photography and lifting and helping your wife, and it'll work. Through your wife's company, you'll talk to game devs almost daily. And remember that feeling of community that you had at GDC when this all started. You'll spend time outside of that lifting shit and hanging out with your dog, picking up his shit. Importantly, you'll start to care again, and one night you'll decide that you're going to animate one thing every day and post it on Twitter. Your block-ins and breakdowns will be absolute shit at first, but keep at it. You'll get feedback from this community and be motivated by everyone's encouragement. You'll still suck, but at least now you'll know it. And Tim, you won't believe it, but not long after you'll get a message from Mike Bithell. He's been following the hashtag and will ask you to join his next project. You just wait till you see the concepts. It's a boy and his dog. You're a boy with a dog. So yeah, you'll say, let's animate some fucking dogs. You'll give him your rate and he'll take it right away. And you should probably learn how to negotiate that shit better. You'll pick up more work like that and realize that freelance is something that everyone should do before working in a studio, that learning how to divorce your emotion from your work can only help you in a team environment. And you'll tell them during next year's GDC. Your old team will drag you to coffee weekly. Brad Clark will help with tech art problems, and you'll learn to value those relationships more. Through all of this, you'll watch others going through layoffs, and Tim, make sure you do what you can to help. Reach out, because you'll remember what it was like to be where they are. And while freelancing will be great, you'll miss the daily interaction with teammates. Soon you'll be approached to join a new company with an incredible team who reminds you of everything that you love about making games, and you'll take the leap. It won't be perfect, and you won't expect it to be, but it won't suck, and that's okay. P.S. Tim, next year, make sure to let everybody know that this letter wasn't just for you, but it was for them. Any one of them could find themselves feeling like they suck at work, at life, at giving GDC talks. Tell them that, yes, things might suck now, but the community that we build up around ourselves will be there to make sure that it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, so like I said, my name is Shahbaaz Shah. I'm a senior animator at Telltale Games. Now, if you've played Telltale's games, you're familiar with the story-driven gameplay where you, the player, are given a choice to interact with an event that's taking place on the screen or to interact with another character in the game. Now, what's so compelling about this gameplay is that we make those choices in our lives every day. And every day is a new opportunity to choose how you interact with others. Now, I had an old animation supervisor, and maybe he'll end up hearing this, Jeff Shue. He brought the animators together before a production one time, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but he said something pretty awesome. He said to us, he said that this job wasn't about you or your demo reel, and that what this production was about was working towards creating the best possible product that we could together. Now, what I thought was so great about this was it was a reminder that when we put our work first and we focus only on our work, and we put our egos before everything else, we fail to create these collaborative communities within our teams and within our companies. What we end up doing is we forget that everybody around us equally has an opportunity to affect our careers or our lives in some way. What we end up failing to see is that everybody around us has a valuable lesson to teach the company, and that everybody around us can teach us something. You're going to work with people from amazing studios from across the country, from all walks of life, and from even across the world. And you yourself are going to be one of those professionals. Now, this experience is invaluable. And what we can do is we can find these opportunities to share this experience and to share that knowledge. So here are some ideas on what we can do to build collaborative communities within our teams and within our companies. Doing animation demonstrations where a new member of the team gets up and presents a lecture on a workflow or a tool. We can have after-hour type animation challenges for animators to work on their craft as well as provide feedback to each other. Even doing social, more kind of casual meetups and events where animators can get to know each other, and even allowing time for animators to get involved in R&D so they can collaborate with other departments as well. It's important to remember to be inclusive and proactive in this company, in your company, and also within your industry. And working collaboratively means getting out of your chair, unfortunately. Sorry, that's the sad part about it. But what we want to do is I'll let you decide who the beauty is and who the beast is. But it's important to remember that we need to develop relationships outside of our departments as well. Start collaborating with TDs and effects artists and programmers and designers and producers. These collaborations greatly increase the value of our final products. And it means not relying, as I mentioned, on chat and email and getting out of your chair and starting those conversations and creating those opportunities. Attending company events, getting to know your coworkers, and remembering to always behave in a professional manner, of course. Now, the thing is that experience, it can't be taught. And the connections that we make in this room, in events like this, within your company, the collaborations that we create are just as important as working on your specific skill for your career. Now, Stephen King once said that we never know which lives we will influence or when or why. And I think that this is so true, especially when it comes to our coworkers. Bill Nye once said that everyone you will ever meet knows something that you don't. And it's a great reminder to keep a humble attitude in our careers as we recognize that everybody around us has something that we can learn from. So to close, I just want to tell you guys that we're all in this together. And that the collaborations, creating these collaborative communities within our teams and within our companies helps us push this industry and continue to make it great. It allows us to have these fun, exciting jobs, but it also helps us build lifelong relationships. Thank you.